Hi everyone, I'm Scott from Costumers for Christ and you're watching Creative Costuming. First off, I want to say thank you to everyone who has bought and read a copy of my book, Holy Heroes. It's off to a great start and so I really appreciate your support. If you don't already have a copy, you can click the info card in the top right corner at any time during the video and that'll take you to my blog where you can learn more about the book and where you can find a copy. Meanwhile, I am going to finally show you how to make a muscle suit. And not just any muscle suit, not a bulky, goofy looking muscle suit, but a realistic, believable muscle suit that's actually comfortable and can be worn under just about any costume. So essentially what we're going to do is cut out 44 individual muscle shapes in half-inch foam and then sandwich them between two spandex bodysuits. So what you're going to need for this project is, as always, a pair of scissors. You'll also need a washable marker, and I do recommend using the washable marker instead of a disappearing ink pen because the disappearing ink pen might actually disappear before you're finished with the project. It takes a little while. You'll also need a seam ripper. If you don't have one of these already, you can find them at Joann's, Hobby Lobbies, or even Walmart. They come in a variety of different colors, so don't let that fool you, but it's got a sharp point here and a little red ball there. You're also going to need some high density or regular density foam. This is also known as upholstery or chair foam, and you can find this also at Joann Fabrics. In the store it's green, and that's the high density stuff. If you want white, which I prefer, you can get that online at joanns.com, and that's the regular density stuff. It's just not as thick. Well, the thickness is the same, but it's not as dense. And it comes in a variety of different thicknesses. I highly recommend that you get half-inch. It's the thicker you get, the less believable the muscles are going to look. And actually half-inch will add more bulk than you expect it to, and it'll add a lot of definition, which is really what you're going for with this muscle suit. So find some half-inch high-density or regular density foam available at Joann's or joanns.com. You're also going to need 2 spandex bodysuits. If you don't already know how to make a spandex bodysuit, then I highly recommend you watch our other tutorial, How to Make a Spandex Bodysuit. And once you watch that, you'll see instructions for how to measure, how to cut, and how to sew an entire bodysuit from scratch that will fit your body perfectly. I don't want you to finish that video though, because this is only a partially sewn bodysuit. The only sewing that you're going to do after you cut out all the pieces is right here at the shoulder seam. So all you're doing is attaching the sleeve to the front and back of the bodysuit, so now it's all one big piece, but you haven't sewn any of the other seams. Don't get ahead because I've got some special instructions for you on how to sew this one. Now you'll also notice that I've got 2 colors here, one white and one more of my flesh tone. I use white for the underside just because it's a nice cool color, and obviously you want something that kind of matches your skin tone for the outside. I also recommend using cotton spandex for the outside layer because then you can go back later and you can airbrush it, adding some definition and shading to those muscles that we're going to put in. Airbrushing does not stick as well to regular spandex, so that's why I say use the cotton spandex for that. And once you've got your 2 bodysuits ready to go, the only other thing you're going to need is this downloadable template. You can just click right here, and that'll take you to my blog once again where you can download this template. And the first page, as you can see, shows you where each of these individual muscles is going to go, and then the subsequent pages has 22 different muscles. And these are all the left side of the body, so once you're transferring those onto the foam, you'll flip it over and trace the right side of the body. So once you've got your pattern and all the muscles in there cut out, you're ready for the first step, which is transferring that pattern onto the foam. And as you can see, I've already done that. All you do is you just trace around those with a Sharpie, and like I said, flip it over, trace them again, and then you're ready to cut those out. Now, I haven't done it yet, but I do recommend that you label each of these muscles just like they're labeled in the pattern. It just makes it easier to find them and get them in the proper place later on. And once that is all done and you've got all 44 of your muscles cut out and ready to go, then you're ready to move on to the next step, which is pre-sewing the bodysuit. And I'll show you how to do that now. Okay, for this step, what you need to do is lay out your spandex bodysuit on a nice flat surface. And we're going to mark a center line for where the zipper is going to go. And so right from the center of the top of the neckline down to the center of the crotch, I've got my ruler laid out. And I'll be using a 22-inch zipper. So I'm going to mark this 18 inches long. Because remember, you want your bodysuit to stretch a little bit as you put the zipper in. And then I'm going to put a little hash mark every 6 inches. Just like that, right across the outer edge. And you can do it more than every 6 inches if you want, but every 6 inches seems to work well. So once you have that done, then you're going to go and do the exact same thing to the other bodysuit. Keep in mind, these bodysuits should be identical in every way. The outside one is not bigger than the inside one or anything like that. They're exactly the same, and so you want to mark the other one exactly the same way, and then you can cut from top to bottom. Alright, once you've cut the zipper line down the back of each of the bodysuits, what we're going to do is we're going to attach the neckline of each bodysuit together. So take your white one and put it on the inside of the flesh tone bodysuit. Both of them are out, or right side out, neither of them are inside out. Both of them are right side out, and you're just going to lay one over the other, and we're going to stitch them together around the neck. So I'm using an overlocking stretch stitch in order to sew these into one piece. On my sewing machine, I'm using a number 6, and that's with a special foot G. If you don't have that, that's okay. You can just use something similar on your sewing machine. But we're going to lock these together. Okay, once you've finished overlocking the edge of the neckline, it should look something like this. The two edges are sewn together on both sides. And you can either, if you want to, you can now roll that in and hem it like this all the way around, which I did on the last bodysuit I made. Or you can just leave it like this. Leaving it this way makes it a little bit more flat so it won't stick out and be noticeable underneath another bodysuit. So I may just leave that one this way. But now that you've got that done, the next step is then to sew the zipper into the bodysuit. So for this, I'm going to have to switch feet. Use your zipper foot and switch back to stitch number 1 on your sewing machine. And then what we're going to do is we're going to sew the right side first. So with the bodysuit laying face down, you're going to take your zipper laying face up, unzip it, take this right edge, turn it over, and lay it onto the fabric edge just like this. And as you stitch, you want to make sure that you're going through both layers of fabric. You're going through both the flesh tone color and through the white. And you want to make sure that the little marks that you made line up as you go. Once you finish putting the right side of the zipper in, you're just going to trim it out. And what you're going to do is zip it up and then flip inside. You should be able to see the little hash marks that you made earlier. And you're going to make that same mark now on the zipper, and then make the same mark on the opposite side of the zipper. This will help you to get both sides of the zipper lined up properly on both sides of the spandex bodysuit. So now we have those lines. You're just going to go ahead and sew the other side of the zipper in the same way that you sewed this side. Alright, once you have your neckline hemmed together and your zipper fully installed, you're ready to baste stitch the rest of the costume. So what we're going to do is flip it inside out, and starting at the wrist on one of the sleeves, you're going to sew down the seams, but you're going to sew with a straight stitch. So you're using your regular foot and the #1 stitch, and you want to lengthen the stitch as much as possible. I set mine to a 5. I'm not sure what your sewing machine is going to look like, but the length on mine is a 5, and that's on a Brothers sewing machine. If you have a Singer or something else, then just set it a little bit longer than your normal stitching. And you're going to start with the flesh-colored bodysuit. Go all the way down from the wrist down the leg, and then sew the white one all the way down from the wrist down to the leg. Be careful not to stitch them together. You're stitching them separately at this point. And the reason that we're using such a long straight stitch is that we're going to remove that stitch after a while. This is just a temporary stitch to hold the whole suit together while we try it on and get the muscles in place. So go ahead and do that. Stitch from the wrist all the way down to the ankle, both sides, and then the wrist all the way down to the ankle on the white one, both sides. Alright, once you've sewn from wrist to ankle on both sides of your bodysuit and on both layers, you're ready to do the inseam. So this is where you would add the diamond shape pattern from the previous tutorial. Do that to both sides, both bodysuits, and then do the same thing with the inseam that you did with the outer seams. So the flesh colored one first, then go back over it and sew the white one. Alright, once you are done sewing the seams all the way around on both layers of your bodysuit, you can then take it, shake it out, make sure everything's where it should be. Then we're going to flip it right side out, and you're ready to try it on and mark off where your muscles are going to go. Okay, once you've got your bodysuit all base stitched and you try it on and it fits the way you want, the next step is taking each of these foam muscles that we already have cut out and tracing them onto the bodysuit in the place where they should go. This step is a whole lot easier if you've got someone to help you with it. So I've asked my wife if she would come over and help with this part of the process. And she's just going to trace each one of these muscles using the washable marker. Okay, so you should have an outline like that where each muscle goes. I recommend starting with the chest muscles and then working your way down the shoulders to the arms, then around the back, then the abs, and then the legs last. And once you've done that with every single one of these muscles, you'll be all set for the next step. Once you get finished tracing all of the muscle shapes onto your bodysuit, you should have a pattern that looks something like this. Now, you'll notice that I left the abs off of my bodysuit. That's just a personal preference. I don't like having them there. But aside from that, all the other muscle groups are here. You can see the 3 different muscles for the shoulder, got the 3 different muscles for the arm, forearm. You can see the 2 back muscles over here. Once you get all of your muscle shapes traced onto it, you're ready to move on to the next step. But listen, if this step is difficult for you, if you're having a hard time getting all the muscles placed properly, don't worry about it. Take your time, take a deep breath. I get stressed out doing it too, and we've done it multiple times here between me and my wife. So just take your time, get through it. Then once you're done, we're going to take this off, we're going to rip the seams, and we're going to sew along all the lines that we just traced. This next step involves using your seam ripper to rip all of the seams that we base stitched earlier. So when we went down the outside seam and the inseam with a long straight stitch, we're going to remove all of those long straight stitches. And it's a fairly easy process. You just slide the seam ripper in between the seam, pop the thread, and then pull apart. And you're just going to do that all the way up from the ankle to the wrist, and then all the way around the inseam. And you're going to do that on both bodysuits, so the flesh tone bodysuit and the white bodysuit. And once you're done with that, you'll be ready for the next step. Alright, once you've finished ripping all the seams that you base stitched earlier, you should be able to open up the costume and lay it flat like this. What we're going to do now is we're going to take the costume and lay it flat, and we're going to stitch over all the lines that we traced onto it. And if you come in here, you can see what I'm going to be using is a straight stretch stitch. It's a number 3 on a Brother sewing machine, and it looks kind of like a lightning bolt going down. If you don't have this stitch, you can use a regular zigzag stitch, which is the number 4 over here. It'll work just as fine, it's just not going to be as discreet. So I prefer to use the number 3, and you just use a regular foot for that. And first you're going to lock it in place as always. And I recommend starting with the chest and start right up close to that neckline, because we hemmed that neckline earlier. And so we know that the 2 layers are going to be even right there. So start there, go around the chest, then go down the arms. And when you come to a spot where the fabric, or the pattern that is, crosses over the seam, like you can see here on the back, the lower back piece actually comes around your side a little bit. What you're going to do is you're going to stitch just about a 1/2 inch away from the edge. You need to leave a little bit of empty space there. So you'd start stitching here, stitch all the way around to here, but then stop. You want to leave this unstitched here so that when we put the 2 layers together, it's still open and the foam can fit inside there. Once you're done with that, then I'll show you the next step. Now that I've finally finished stitching over all of the lines that we traced onto the bodysuit, I wanted to give you a close-up look at how this should look. You'll notice if you come in close, all of the tight zigzag stitching, that's that number 3 straight stretch stitch, all along the lines that we drew. And if you flip it over, you'll see what looks almost like a quilted pattern on the reverse side. So I've sewed through both layers of fabric, and this stretch will, or this stitch that is, will stretch with the fabric. And so when you put it on and when we stuff the muscles in there, it'll stretch with it. Now that we have all of that done, what we're going to do is re-sew all of the seams that we ripped earlier. This time we're going to sew them together using a overlocking stretch stitch. So you're going to use, if you have a Brother sewing machine, you need foot G, and we're going to sew on setting number 8, which is that overlocking stretch stitch. And just like before, we're going to sew from the wrist all the way down to the ankle the flesh tone bodysuit first. Be careful not to get the white bodysuit in there, even though it's close to the edge. You'll have to peel it back and make sure it doesn't overlap. Do that all the way down one side of the flesh colored bodysuit, all the way down the other side of the flesh colored bodysuit, and then go back and do the white suit. Alright, once you finish sewing all the seams on your bodysuit, what you're going to then do is take it inside out, and you're going to cut slits inside the outline of all the muscles like you can see here. Now you want to be very careful while snipping these to make sure you only cut through the white spandex and not through the outer layer. And what this does is it creates little pockets that you can then insert your muscles into the costume. So once you've cut your slits, and again you want to cut them big enough that you can fit the muscles into it, but not too big that the spandex spreads too far. So you fit the muscle in place like this, and you'll have to kind of work it around. This may take a while, especially for some of the smaller muscles, but you get it all smoothed out and in place like so. There you go. And then you do the same thing to all the other muscles. This is going to take you a little while, but once you've got all your muscles in place, then you're ready to try on the costume. Well, as you can see, my muscle suit is completely finished. It adds a lot of definition to the arms and shoulders, and it adds a couple extra inches to the chest and arms as well. Overall, I'm really happy with the way that it turned out. I hope that you're happy with yours too. Like I mentioned earlier, if you want to give it that extra edge, I recommend lightly airbrushing some shading in and around these muscles. It really gives it that realistic look. I'd love to see or hear how yours turned out, so please comment in the comment section, or even feel free to shoot me a message and send me a picture if you like. If this video was helpful to you, please like and share it. And don't forget to subscribe. We've got some really cool videos coming up in the near future, including how to make a fabric cowl for characters like Captain America or The Flash. As always, thanks for watching, God bless, and happy costuming.